organization. We have three main functions. One, we put mentors in schools to build relationships, supporting predominantly low-income kids of color, building healthy relationships with them. 80% of the staff we do hire to go into schools are from populations of color, and we also have a program that we get the master's degree, so we put them through school while they're working with us. So the next generation of teachers will be youth development experts that have worked with us, and we'll hopefully get more teachers of color. Here behind me, you have the Conway Community Center. We're in the middle of a $10 million campaign renovation with new fields and buildings so that we can serve the community on the east side of St. Paul. We think they deserve like a world-class facility. So, that's that's gone in right now. And the cafeteria was the first thing we did because food insecurity was something we wanted to look at, and we did the gym. Now they'll start doing outside. And then lastly, we do free summer camp programming, and we're actually talking with St. Paul and Minneapolis how to do camps this summer, but in a little different way. Traditionally, we do camps for over 7,000 kids, and they're all 100% free. They get food, a water bottle, a t-shirt. But we are, our staff is actually really enjoying this, trying to figure out how do we have a soccer camp or basketball camps with social distancing. And we're pretty close on the model. So I think we have some plans that the parks are okay in. And so we will have positive experiences so kids can come out and play and learn with each other without touching or contacting each other. So we're looking forward to a great summer as well.
That's wonderful, Tony. And tell people about your own career as an athlete as well. You've been a phenomenal leader and accomplished person on a world-class level.
Well, in my former life, I was a soccer player. I was a soccer player for 17 years, and I did get the luxury of being able to represent the United States in the 2002 World Cup. So, that was the highlight of my career. And right now, I still work in that capacity as a coach, as a scout, and I also work with the State Department as a sports envoy. So we've been doing some international videos, but also, basically promoting democracy in other countries to protect American citizens across the world. And so we can also learn about other cultures, so we have a better understanding and ways to work together.
That's wonderful. Let me introduce Yana Ling. Why don't we ask you to introduce yourself? Thank you for being here. And Carmen says you're Cubana. Unmute your microphone. Unmute your mic. Yana Ling, you have to unmute the microphone.
I am. Okay, there it is. Yes, I am. I was born in, my family's from Cuba, but I was born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. So,
well, see, you're like me. My family's Cuban as well and Jamaican, but I was born in Kansas City. So,
okay,
I claim Cuba and I love Cuba.
Yes. Well, I've been working in the community since 2015. I started my first business when I was homeless, which was called T-Lot, Tomorrow's Leaders of Today. I spoke about the foster care system because I was raised in the foster care system from 2 to 22 years old. Actually, I turned 23. So I have that experience and that walk. And so being that said, with everything that's going on now, so coming to today with COVID, I had to start something new, a new business, because T-Lot can't go into the community like I used to. And so I started MNCRC, which is Minnesota COVID-19 Resource Connect. And I started for the Black and Brown communities because I've noticed, even in the positions that I'm in, I am co-chair of Hennepin County COC as well as a voting member of Ramsey County COC. I was finding that resources are not as shared in the Black and Brown communities as well as others communities. And so I felt the need to create something where they can come to, where I'm spreading truthful information as well as they can gain and access resources that work for them. And so I created that, and that is up and running as of last Thursday. Yes. And so that is open and available now. So just keeping up with that and spreading the word and getting out there. So, yeah.
And I see we have Jerry Jerez on the line as well. We've got your picture, Jerry, but love to have your voice and weigh in on the conversation here. Thank you for being here. You're a member of the board of directors of Board Arcane, I believe. And that organization's mission is to preserve and educate Puerto Rican and Afro-Latino culture through the arts and traditional music and dance of Plena. So welcome to the program. You have to unmute your microphone to speak, and you can turn your video on if you want to.
Hello. Well, I'm in in a spot that I cannot turn the video on. There's a lot of things going on, but my name is Jerry Jerez. I am from Dominican Republic with a background with Puerto Rican and my family as well. And well, my line of work is through Casa de Esperanza. I am the community engagement manager, and what we do there is that we educate the community in prevention of domestic violence, and also we intervene to help women and men and children that are experiencing that. And I am also a board member for Borinquen Performing Arts. And what we do there is that we create community. We teach plena, bomba, dance, music, and singing and the songs to just create. Sorry, I'm crossing the street.
Okay. Be careful.
Yes, to create community and teach different communities about the traditions and customs of Puerto Rico. So I am also a singer. I am the singer or I used to be the singer of Tropical Son, and I am now the singer of Plena Sota. So that's who I am.
Thank you for being here. So just jump in. These conversations are informal, and the notion is to be conversational. So we're friends talking. I see my friend Roy Magnuson is here as well. Roy Magnuson is the communications director for the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department. He's also an educator and a long-term civically engaged and a civic leader. Roy, always good to see you. Welcome again to Conversations with Al McFarlane. And I want you to weigh in just on the notion and the value that the Sheriff's Department is doing and bringing to community, particularly around the COVID-19 crisis. I think you guys are moving out of how we traditionally see law enforcement, and you're moving into redefining community and the role of the Sheriff's Department in building, creating, and maintaining community. What do you think about that?
Well, one, I thank you for saying it so well. I'm going to borrow it and take your words and make them mine. But the Sheriff's Office, under the leadership of the Sheriff and former St. Paul Police Chief Bill Finney, who came back out of retirement to be an undersheriff. I came out of education to be public information officer and special assignments. And we really are trying to do what you just said, redefine the relationship. And, today is a day where we have a very somber note on the problems of relationships, because when you have an incident that, I'm not going to say anything positive because there isn't. If you don't have a well of trust, if you don't have people that know that we are trying to do to correct things, we have officers, deputies that are trying to be part of the community, then you have no conversation. And we are going to continue. We will be out at Santa Foundation Wednesday, Friday, helping. We will be at Mount Olivet on Thursday. And we've got some volunteers coming with us. I don't know that we have a solution, but I know that my grandmother, and I suspect your grandmothers from Cuba and other places, had similar sayings. If you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. Well, we're trying to stop digging and climb out and do more of this to create a sense that we are together. So thank you for letting me be involved with the conversations, and I'll fit back in later, but thank you for your wonderful introduction, because you spelled out exactly what we're trying to do.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, your leadership there. Andrea, let me go to you again. So the church is particularly significant in the faith community and the role it can play. And one of the challenges that the community has is how do we negotiate being available and accessible to people in a way that is consistent with requirements and regulations and social distancing. How are you guys handling that over at Mount Olivet?
At Mount Olivet, we are not having in-person worship, but we always remain available. So whether it's by phone, whether it's by email, texting, my husband and I make ourselves available all the time. So we provide our cell phones, we're great at texting, emailing. It was always before that I always made my phone number available to the kids, not so much with parents, but their kids could always get in touch with me. I always said kids are easy. But we use social media all the time. We've taken the approach that, with COVID, everyone's caught off guard. No one expected this. But it is that our ministry has to be holistic. We're so good at talking about what it is that we want to do. But, we're at the point now where we have to do more than talking because everyone's afraid. We're afraid of, something that's, we can't see. Something, we can't touch, something we can't just, put a Band-Aid on and make it go away. But again, we have to be holistic. We can't just, as we say, preach it away. We have to do more than that. We have to be sensitive to what people are feeling. But then at the same time, we have to feed them. Sometimes it's just them seeing us. So when we first started the feeding, it was the food that made them better or feel better, but the real thing that also made them feel better was just those kids being able to see their youth leaders in person, but also us practicing the safe distancing at the same time. And that's even true with seniors because a lot of the feeding has shifted to our senior citizens because they are really, at higher risk. And so sometimes it's actually just being able to see their pastor's face from a distance and knowing that they have access.
Can you lean into your microphone just so they get the strongest, clearest
Sure.
voice from you?
Okay. I know I have like a really soft voice as well.
Okay.
So.
You do have a soft voice, right? So I need dynamic voice. But, so let me just ask each of us personally, have any of us, all of us, met or have people in our family or lives who've experienced COVID-19 either by infection and recovery or hospitalization or death? How has your experience been from where you stand, Andrea?
I don't have anyone that I know of in my family. I have friends who have had friends from college or family members who have either had someone pass away or someone that they know. So, I have been impacted by just having to, comfort friends or make calls. We've had at least 2 people in our congregation who have, been infected with COVID. We actually have a member right now. And I know that, she has an autoimmune issue. So, it's actually being able to comfort those members who, we know, and just make sure that they're okay, offering, the services that we provide, even the feeding, but, just making sure, that they're okay, and helping the best ways that we know how. And also encouraging other members to respect those members, respect, to care for them, but also respect their privacy as well. That in itself is important. Yeah.
Okay. So now you have to raise your camera up a little bit, Andrea. So you leaned in. There we go. Perfect. There we go.
It's that perfect dance.
That's it. Okay. Yanalyn, same question for you. Do you have people in your life that have, I got a call, for example, over the weekend, one of my nephews, his wife has been diagnosed with COVID-19. She's down south and he's waiting for his results, but obviously he's preparing to hear the news that he likely has been affected as well. So he's in his 40s, fairly good shape, fairly good health in general. But he said, Uncle, this is no joke. We got to tell our people that this stuff is serious, really serious. And that's a personal testimony. So I'm wondering what people's stories are. Do you have anybody that you've talked to closely, Yanalyn?
Yes. My twin brother's fiance actually just told me yesterday that she does have it. And she works as a scientist here in Minnesota. And they had to shut down, the area. I don't want to say too much of where that's at, but they had to shut that down. So she just told me, and she said the same thing. She's like, this was totally different. She's like, I felt like when I laid down, I was choking in my own, like just, and plus she has asthma. So, and she is 39. And so that was tough to hear. And I knew something was wrong because I kept checking on her. Like every day I'm telling her, how are you doing? And she didn't call me back. And we were supposed to do an interview for my website and she never got back to me. And then come to find out, what's going on. But she did say, she is willing to do an interview with me so I can post it up to let people know personally that this is a person in our community, and what she experienced, because, seeing it from TV and distance is different than, you having someone right there in the community that can explain, that it's real and it's no joke, and so they're saying she's not contagious, but, I just don't, CDC is checking in with her. And so I just have some issues of how things are going when it comes to that in her, just being there for her, sending her food, and that's all I can do right now. But she's willing to do an interview. So,
Maybe she'll come here too to do the interview, because I think there's power in the stories.
It is, but she's sorry about that, but she's scared that there will be a stigma, because she is a Black woman, and then she's a scientist, and so that's the only part that she's a little leery about, which you just never know. So I only can imagine how she's feeling. So I don't want to pressure her. But there's a stigma, especially being a Black woman. And then you say you have COVID, so I don't know. So
I'm expecting Attorney General Keith Ellison to jump in on the call in a few minutes. So when he does, we'll just bring him up and have him involved in this conversation as well. Tony, same question to you. Have you met people already? Do you know anybody in your personal circle that is experiencing or has experienced COVID-19?
Not in my personal circle, but as I was walking out front in the drive-through, one of my friends' supporters, Latino man, came by, and he just said one of our longer-standing supporters that owns a restaurant so sending prayers for him, and that it's kind of a shock now, and I'm sending prayers, so reminding me to send prayers for everybody. But this is also a time when people aren't going to necessarily be giving out the information freely. I think people are scared or nervous, and we need to really provide a trusting environment of support so that we can, and we just need to check up on people and ask them how they're doing. So this was the first time I've had a personal somebody that I actually know that has it. But kind of lets me know, like, wow, you know what? I haven't reached out for him, and it's been about 3 months, and you never know who has people reaching out to them or not. So, without being able to connect with people, this can be a really tough time, challenging time. So, my advice to people was reach out and touch somebody virtually.
Again, Carmen, are you in touch with people that are experiencing COVID-19?
Oh, wow. So my auntie in Puerto Rico, she did not have COVID-19, but the isolation isolation and not being able to be with family, and that caused great stress. And she had a massive heart attack and died Mother's Day. Her daughter, Dr. Lourdes Quejeros, had visited with us that Friday. And so I'm so happy that I visited with my auntie and we laughed, but I could tell her loneliness. So while she did not experience it physically, the loneliness and what's happening certainly took a toll. So then I also have a sister who's in a facility in Queens, and she has diabetes and is very, very ill. And so I've been sending her lots of stuff and masks and pictures. And I noticed that her, like Tony just said, reach out and touch someone. And I noticed that just that constant talking to her and sending her pictures and masks so she can give to her health providers has lifted her spirit. So I think COVID-19 is touching all of us one way or another. Yeah. Yes. Oh, can't hear you.
Okay, I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. You're live on KFAI, but you're also checking us out on Facebook, and we're also on YouTube as we speak. This is a rich conversation, an important one, about the critical issue of the day, COVID-19, and about how we as individuals and as communities and as families cope. We demonstrate, we find, we discover resiliency. We resolve that despite the fear and the horrific consequences this pandemic can mean, that there is both hope and positivity and every reason to be committed to being part of building a future that is healthful, that we can do this. That's what I think is the feeling beneath all of our conversations here. And so this is a good time to talk. If you like this kind of conversation, want you to like it and share it with people in your network so they can join us on Facebook or join us on YouTube. Certainly keep listening here on KFAI. This is a wonderful resource, and this is why we exist, to keep our community connected. Jerry, let me throw the same question over to you. Am I pronouncing your name right, first of all? Jerry Jerez, am I saying that properly?
Jerry Jerez, yes.
Jerry Jerez, okay. So,
well, yeah. I do. I actually have a childhood friend in New York. I grew up in New York, and as we know, New York has been highly impacted everywhere, but New York has been highly impacted. And in her family, her husband and herself, they were in the hospital, and she just got out a week ago. And I spoke with her, I think the day after she got out of the hospital, and it shook me because she could barely speak, and she was already in recovery. She was sent home, so she was okay to go home, and still she was unable to speak properly. So that was saddening. The other way that it has impacted is I am working remotely from home, and that's a challenge sometimes because I work, with participants in the domestic violence world, and we try to be there for them. But when you are remotely, there are certain circumstances that you cannot reach out personally to people. So that's challenging. And the other way is artists all over the world are being impacted by this. And we're trying in Borinquen, we're trying to create a virtual classes this summer to connect with the people in Puerto Rico and the local artists from here, and try to connect them together to the community that we work with. So in many ways, we are all impacted, and we just try to make sure that we're there. Myself, I just, always recommend self-care, because it is very important that we take care of our emotions and ourselves during this time, because we tend to, when we work with communities, we tend to forget about ourselves and to tell people to take care of themselves. See, if we cannot take care of ourselves, we cannot take care of our community.
Jerry, thank you. See, we're joined by Attorney General Keith Ellison. Keith, before you got on, I was just asking the guest here if they had people in their personal family or personal orbit that had experienced COVID-19, and you know, and some were saying yes, some were saying no. But the general tenor of the conversation was just a reminder that we all have to pay attention. We have to connect and be genuine in reaching out to people in our family. But I remember you told me that you know, your mom was one of the people that was impacted by COVID-19. First of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for taking time to join this conversation, Keith. But you know, join that part of the conversation. First of all, the personal side. Then I've got questions that are business related to your business as the chief law enforcement officer of the state.
Well, you know, my mom was one of those moms who she just held up the sky for me and my brothers and my dad. She was just one of the lovely, beautiful, constant sources. At 56 years old, I would call her up and say, "Ma, I got a problem. What do you think?" She would never not answer. Whenever I was in Detroit, I didn't need to call ahead. I could easily just drop in and just be with mom and just hang out. There was always something in the refrigerator. She was an awesome cook. If anybody wants to learn how to make pralines, etouffee, gumbo, shrimp creole, or 55 other things, all they need to do is look at Mo Rocca, look up Clyda Martinez Ellison, and look up Mo Rocca. She was on my grandmother's ravioli, and she was cooking with Mo Rocca, and she was so proud to be doing it. It was so funny. And so that's my mom. She was a social worker, and she at the age of 56, my father had a debilitating stroke. And so she had been running his medical office. My dad was a psychiatrist, right? And so at 56, she said, well, I got to go figure out how to get me some income. So she went back and got a master's in social work and did that work right up until February 2020. And she was caring for kids. My mother didn't have any daughters. She just had 5 boys. And so, I don't know, in some ways had a lot of practice at raising people like us. And so she would deal with these juvenile offenders in Wayne County, Michigan, and how many kids wrote her letters, some excellent, beautiful letters, some of them in letters where barely any of them words were even spelled right, but they were always saying that they loved her and they thank her for everything she did for them. That's my mom. Left us at the age of 82 from Natchitoches, Louisiana. Proud of her roots, proud of her Detroit home, but now exists in our hearts and in our memories in a city where so many Black folks, lost their lives in Detroit, Michigan, where it's one of the worst outbreaks in the whole country. And in moments like this, you think about what could have happened, what could have been done, how we could have done things differently. And I just think that the slow response, the denial of any problem, the misrepresentation, offering drugs that were never tested for this illness really just contributed. And so it's a clear example of how we need to be far more active citizens, demand much, much more of our government. That's my 2 cents.
I'm concerned that we're becoming anesthetized by listening to the numbers every day. It's 1 million, it's 800,000, it's 1,000, whatever it is. But pretty soon the numbers become meaningless. And we feel like we just can put those in the back of our mind and then go about our daily business, willy-nilly, as they say. And but to hear you talk about, your mom, it gives you a special connection to the hundreds of thousands of people, probably all around the world, who have gone through what you're going through and have gone through. And I think it behooves us all to think like that, to recognize that, this is not something over there this is personal and close to all of us all the time. What do you think about that?
Well, what I think is that my heart just bleeds for everybody who had to plan a funeral during this time. Everybody who wanted to hug someone at that funeral. Everyone who's had to stand away from the gravesite. Everyone who couldn't, a lot of us, our loved ones, they may have been famous or not famous or nothing, but people did want to come and gather to honor the life they lived, and you just can't do it now. My mother, everybody knows Keith Ellison is that Muslim politician. My mother was a Catholic and had been Catholic for 10 generations. The archdiocese told their priest that no priest could appear at anyone's funeral, including my mother. So although my mother was a 2-day-a-week Catholic, ran the youth group, was a lector, and very active at Jesu Church, at neither her funeral or at her interment graveside was there a Catholic priest there, which we're still trying to deal with. I will say I would have thought they could have at least offered to appear by phone or video. They didn't. And I don't blame the priest for that. I blame the leadership, and so any archbishop. So, I'm like, please, you got apologies to make, in my opinion. And so, and I hope they hear what I just said.
Well, that leads us to what's happening here in Minnesota now. Like our state, the governor is sort of shifting in response to some demands of some church organizations to open up churches again. Where do you stand on that?
Well, Archbishop Hebda said openly he would defy the law, despite the fact that it being the law and the mounting human tragedy. He said he didn't care. He was going to open up in defiance of the law. I don't think that's right. And I'm deeply, deeply sad that someone entrusted with the lives of so many would be so flagrantly heartless in the face of this tragedy.
What will you do if that happens?
Anybody who violates the law, we're going to enforce the order, period. But if he can use his weight to get the executive order changed, then I can't enforce the law if it's not the law. But I will tell you, without fear or favor, if anyone violates the executive orders, I will see them in court.
Okay. Let me shift the focus. So you've also been leading, along with Commissioner Harrington, a series of forums around the state, attempting to reduce police violence against citizens. But this morning, the news is tragic. A gentleman by the name of George Floyd is dead, and he was killed, and we watched it on Facebook, appears to be as a consequence of an officer having his knee in his neck during an arrest in South Minneapolis. What happens to
George Floyd's life mattered. There are people who love George Floyd. There are people who cared about him. And the fact that he is not with us is deeply painful wound, particularly in the light of Jamar Clark, Philando Castile, Eric Garner. The names just mount. Laquan McDonald, so many people. And there must be and will be an investigation. It's already started. The FBI and the Criminal Bureau Apprehension have already began to collect data, information, and statements. The officers are not active now, but because of their collective bargaining agreement, they're on unpaid leave, and on paid leave. Sorry, that is a mistake. Paid leave. And so that is what is happening at this moment. And I can assure you that the values of transparency and accountability are going to prevail here. As a law enforcement person, it would not be proper for me to start making pronouncements about guilt or innocence or what the facts actually will be found to be. But my eyes work, and I saw the tape, and I'm deeply disturbed by it. And it just seems inexplicable to me, but I'm still going to be open to the investigation because I don't want anybody saying that I prejudge the facts in this case. So, but I think that as citizens who are outraged, you have every single right to exercise your First Amendment prerogative. But I would say, please, if you do march, wear a mask, don't shake hands, bring your, use sanitizing stuff for your hands, and try to keep 6 feet from people. But I think that it is proper, right, and incredibly appropriate for people to demonstrate their outrage, to put pressure on the government to lift up accountability and transparency. Lift up accountability and transparency. If they didn't do anything wrong, fine. Submit to a statement. Give over all the documents. Don't make excuses. Don't let yourself get caught making up things and writing statements that conflict with what the video shows. Be open. Be transparent and cooperative. And so that's what I say to one and all.
Keith Ellison, thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. That was the voice of Keith Ellison, the visual. He's joining us by Zoom. And if you like this kind of conversation, we want you to like it and share it on your Facebook and other networks. And always stay tuned here to get what we call robust conversations right here on Conversations with Al McFarlane on KFAI. But if you're watching us on Facebook, like it and share it, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Host a watch party. Let people know this conversation is going on, and let's expand the people that we reach by sharing. Carmen, this has been a good program. We've got a few minutes still. Hopefully we'll be joined by Alexander O'Neill to change the tenor a little bit of the conversation, because we need to always keep some joy. Even in the midst of tragedy, we have to always keep hope and something that brings us up, that lifts us up, so that we have the power to push through. What do you think, Carmen? ¿Qué piensas?
Oh, yes, and pues por eso invité a Jerry, porque she's a singer, she's an entertainer, también Janaline. They both are artists, and they both are right from the soul, from the heart. And when I saw them over at Mount Olivet, and go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, so when I saw them at Mount Olivet, Janaline, the joy that they had there with the supplies that Tony Sannon brought in and the sheriff's office, Ramsey County, it was so inspirational. And while we're in the midst of horror, there was joy among those individuals, and all the volunteers, everybody was joyful and grateful. And so I think when you look at our history, the diaspora, we come from resilient roots that always celebrate and always give thanks, even when we're at the midst of horrific times. So I want to thank all the guests for coming on, and Mr. Magnuson, who is helping cross those barriers and those bridges and thinking outside of the box. That's because he's an educator, a teacher, and can do that. So I'm just heartfelt and joyful to know that our community has such leadership, and these are things you don't hear on WCCO or on mainstream or anything like that. And so I want to thank you all so much for coming. And Tony, thank you for interrupting your day. And big soccer player, traveled the world, takes care of Haiti. And yet here he is in the neighborhood, 3-4 days a week doing the exact same thing. So those are the warriors that you see stand up, and it gives you hope and faith. And I want to thank Mr. McFarlane for keeping this alive, the conversations, for allowing us to have these open discussions that are from the heart and are often painful, as was our Attorney General's story with his mom. But it's something so important, and I want to thank you again for sharing with us and keeping it alive. And I'd like for our singers to sing.
Sure. Are you put you on the spot, Jerry?
Janaline.
And Janaline? We haven't done this before by Zoom, but I would love to try it.
The singers. Jerry,
I can. I mean,
Let's do it. Go
I
ahead. Go
don't.
for it.
All right. Let's see. All right. So I think I'm gonna go with the Peruvian vals, okay? Because it's a cappella. So
Yes.
tú me podrás negar la luz de tu cariño. También podrás negarme ese calor que un día me diste, pero jamás impedirás que aún te ame como ayer y que al oír tu nombre sin querer me duele el corazón. Pero jamás impedirás que aún te ame como ayer y que al oír tu nombre sin querer me duele el corazón. Just a little bit. I don't want to take all those steps.
That's wonderful. What describe the lyrics in English?
Okay, so basically the boss from Peru, because I do different genders in music. Boss from Peru, it's basically talks a lot about sentiment and feelings. So this particular song was just saying that even though the other person, whatever the other person does, the singer or the person that I was interpreting is always going to love that person or have love for that other person. So that's pretty much what that was.
I love.
And that was from Peru. In Peru,
Yes.
it's from the background of African cultures. And I say cultures because there's many different parts of Africa that in Latin America we have. So I cannot just say one country or another or one specific culture within the African culture. I have to say cultures because that's what Latin America is about. Different cultures of Africa, different cultures of Europe, and all in the mix of it all. So that's what that
Our
was.
indigenous roots also. Our indigenous roots are in there too. So it's a beautiful,
Yes,
beautiful thing.
Taíno.
Taíno. Gracias, Cubana. Can you sing a little song, Miss Cuba? Santo Domingo, no te oigo.
No, not today. Not today. Maybe next time.
Yes.
Jerry, that was absolutely amazing. I love your voice. I mean, just the power, the passion, the beauty of the words and the your ability to bring life to those words. I feel it. I feel it. So I thank you so much. Just that's how wonderful art is, and great voice.
Gracias.
Yeah, mil gracias.
Sí,
Mil gracias.
bellísima.
Well, I'm not sure if we're going to get Alexander O'Neill. We're looking for him to join the call at around this time. In the meantime, let me ask if the studio's there. You'll let me know if the connection comes through with Alexander O'Neill. And the reason we were going to have him on is that he's doing a live show this Saturday night, live to internet, and it's for a fundraiser to support ending homelessness worldwide. We got the email a couple of days ago, and so I sent him a Facebook message saying, Alex, man, look, why don't you come on my show Tuesday to help promote your Saturday night event? And he agreed, obviously, wanted to do it, but he did tell me that they had some internet and connection problems, so that could be the reason we weren't able to link right now. But if he does come on, we'll just jump right into that interview with Alexander O'Neill. And if he doesn't come on, we are pleased and proud to promote what he's doing because he's a great voice, a great person, and we love that he represents our community and actually humanity in a powerful way with messages and songs about being in love and being a person who lives out the notion and the meaning of love. So I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane, a great program today with guests from around Twin Cities, including we had the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, on, but also on the call, Andrea Thompson, who is at the Mount Olivet Baptist Church in St. Paul and working with Yanelin Montalvo Valdez also with Tony Sana and Roy Magnuson, all supporting food and services for people during the COVID-19 crisis. Jerry Janis, who you just heard sing, working also with Borakin, working to promote the power of art and artists to bring healing and sustenance to community. And my colleague and co-host for this program, my good friend Carmen Robles, she always trills the R, so I try to imitate her in doing that. Carmen, thanks for organizing this wonderful program. Si quiere, podremos continuar este programa en español.
Vámonos, adelante. You're in America, speak Spanish.
Right.
Y Janalín, ¿usted habla español?
Poquito, a little bit. Not, a lot of work to do. But you know, I always talk about, you know, being raised in the foster care system, they strip a sense of yourself. So they strip that from you. And I talk a lot about that. So yeah.
Oh, I'd love to read your stories on the foster care system.
On my website, I write blogs, so you can see one of it's about foster care and human trafficking, correlating, because we don't talk about that. We always know of human trafficking, pimp or kidnap or, you know, forced or in other countries, but we don't hear the side of foster care and human trafficking because that's what I experienced. So, and so it does correlate. And so that language has to be in place instead of calling it, you know, we have to call it what it is, not sexual abuse. It's human trafficking, because we're going to new homes, not knowing who they are, as well as, you know, similar, you know. So I speak, I wrote a blog on that. So it's on my website. So if you could check it out at mncrc.com. So, yeah.
Thank you. I will. So where did you get your joy, and where did you, how did you tap into that Cubanoism, or do we have enough time?
Oh, well, we got a couple minutes here, I see. I've always, regardless of what I went through, I've never showed what I was feeling on the inside, on the outside. And so I still tried to smile, because I've always thought of there's always somebody out there worse off than I had it. So that's what motivated me to keep pushing no matter what. And no matter how hard it was, I still pushed through. And I didn't make an excuses of not. I was a teen mother at 15, so I had a child too. And so just pushing through everything and just thinking of someone else is going through it worse than me every single day. And so that's what motivated me to push through. And I've always been a helper. That's always, anybody that knows me since I was a kid would say I've always been a helper. And so just helping those that will allow me to help is always a great thing, you know. So I'm just passionate. I have passion.
It speaks to the resilience of our roots and our spirit, and you know, generations, centuries of it, and it just goes on to show that this too shall pass, and we will get through it. And churches like Mount Olivet keeps the spirit going, and you know, gets that fire going. And you're so right, Ms. Thomas, when you say about the youth, and I see that in Tony's group too, all these young people just coming to arms and just doing some wondrous things. I applaud all of you because they learn by example. And thank you so much for sharing that, Janelle.
Thank you.
Pues sí.
I'm communicating on the side channel here with Alex O'Neill, trying to work out our technology so that he can get on the program for the last few minutes of it. But I don't know if it's going to be successful or not. But you know what? It's always worth it. Roy, take a minute to have you reflect as we wind this program down. You know, and as an educator, Roy Magnuson, you know, what is your sense of the value of us working together, talking like this, and trying to create another awareness, another understanding in community that has resilience and respect as at its base? What do you think?
The aging history teacher, social studies teacher in me wants us all to remember that the name of the country is the United States of America. I'm old enough that my biggest influence in many ways is the concept of living in an integrated society. I think the greatest successes of the last 50 or 60 years have been when we have been a we. And even listening to the great anecdotes of Cuban, Jamaican, speak Spanish, Puerto Rican, well, that's very American. And I think sometimes we forget when we get so angry and so set up on the political world that we're first human beings and we're first connected. I listened to the Attorney General speak very carefully about the importance of doing the correct things with rule of law, but I was struck by the fact that he also was a grown man, proud to be a son from a mother that came up from Mississippi to Detroit, and that's very American too. So to some degree right now, when we take our steps forward, I think we have to take the best of what we are. And that's kind of Mount Olivet Church and the Santa Foundation. And if we take the best together, then we have a chance to keep going forward, even when we sometimes see the worst.
Listen, this has been a wonderful hour. It goes so fast. I want to thank all of you. That was Roy Magnuson we just heard from. Before that, Yanalyn Montalvo Valdez, my co-host Carmen Robles, and Jerry Jerez. Beautiful music and beautiful story, Jerry. Andrea Thomas, one of the leaders over at Mount Olivet Baptist Church. And also we had Tony Santa from Tony Santa Foundation working in collaboration with the people at the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department and Mount Olivet to create a response to community during the COVID-19 crisis. Thank all of you. Thank you so very much. I'm sorry that we didn't make the connection with Alexander O'Neill, but I want to simply remind you that he's going to be doing a, I think, live to Facebook show, a concert this Saturday night. I think it's going to be at 8 o'clock Minnesota time. Or no, 11 o'clock Minnesota time. But I'll be posting the announcement on my Facebook page so you can look at it and check it out. There it is right there. Live stream concert from the Grand Northern Recording Studio in Manchester, United Kingdom, this Saturday, May 30th at 4 o'clock Central Time and 11 o'clock UK time. So I was kind of right, but 4 o'clock. Let's have a party. It's going to be all right. There we go. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Al McFarlane, for keeping us connected locally